Hi, this is Michael Grinder. Welcome to our last webinar with each other. Most of the people on the line are going to be people that have already signed up for our program in October in Perth. Tonight, I would love to have lots and lots of questions in terms of what you're thinking as you prepare for the webinar. I would strongly suggest that if you haven't already, go to the website, michaelgrinder.com, and download your manual that you'll be given when you arrive there. But it sure is nice for you to look at it ahead of time. The big thing we're going to do tonight, apart from answering questions, is we're just going to review the 3 levels that we have in terms of perception. Our first level is the whole area of how do I understand one person, their values, and what is likely to be their perceptual filters. The book we will use for that is going to be called The Elusive Obvious. The Elusive Obvious is our book that just describes in general the nonverbals that you can watch someone else do. And by watching them, you have a very strong sense of what motivates the person. Then when we look at 2 people, we're going to use our book, the cat and dog book called Charisma, the Art of Relationship. And then we're going to also look at the idea of group dynamics. Group dynamics, most of you are going to have what's called the fast track, and it is a way of understanding 3 or more people in any kind of a setting. There is a 4th level of perception that we will not cover unless you bring footage that actually applies to that. And in fact, one of the film strips that we have from a movie tonight does go into the 4th level, which is called system. Now, what is the difference between what we call group dynamics and system? Group dynamics are the people that are present. A system are the people that are present and those that are not present that are still connected with the people that are gathered together. And it's called system. Now, we mentioned that the purpose of when you watch an individual, the overriding question is, what is likely to be that person's values? When you're looking at 2 people, our overriding question is, who's likely to dominate? And that's why we use the template of cats and dogs, because whoever the more cat person is, they're more likely to dominate or influence. So when we say dominate, that's not a negative term. It's just a description of who's likely to influence whatever's going to happen. And then when we're looking at group dynamics, the question that we're going to ask is, what is likely to happen next? And then our 4th level is system, and our question is, what is being rewarded or what is being reinforced? Questions that you might have, we'll start off with, and then if there is none, then we'll go into a movie and show you some example footage that you could use and bring to the training. Tonight, Amy, who works for MGA, Michael Grinder and Associates, is in the studio here, and you might see her from time to time pointing to the screen or helping me do the maneuvers of the electronic navigation that we're doing. Questions that you might have? Franca is typing at this time. We'll wait for her message to come in. Not seeing anything coming up from Franca's typing. So I'm going to go into our first movie that we're going to show you. And of course, we have to explain the setting and what's involved so you can interpret it. Now, when we get together in October, we encourage you to bring 3 minutes of footage, and it can be of 1 person, 2 people, or group dynamics, but 3 minutes of that. Then what we're going to do is we're going to show that scene 3 times. The first time, all we do is look at it, no interpretation. The second time, whoever brought the footage, they have the option of pausing it as we're watching it and for them to give their interpretation of what they see. Now, how do you practice what you're looking at and how to share with other people what you see? That's where you go back to your manual that you receive when you come to the training, and it's on our website, on our homepage, and you can download it. So if you're looking at one person, there's a set of questions that you practice and try to fill out, and that gives you the opportunity when we see the same footage a second time to say, okay, now look at this, notice here, blah, blah, blah. Then we see the same footage a third time. And when we see that 3 minutes a third time, then what it is I stop using the mouse and explain what I see. And the difference between what you can see and what I can see is your professional development and your perception. So let's see what Franca says. Yes, she's just repeating exactly what we are communicating. That is, there's actually 4 levels of perception. In the room, most of us, we're only going to have 3 levels, but there is a 4th. The first level is looking at an individual, what is likely to be their values, motivation, looking at 2 people, who's likely to influence or dominate, looking at 3 or more people, group dynamics, what is likely to happen next, and the 4th one is system. System are all the people that are present and not present that affect each other. On that 4th one, the overriding question we have is, what is likely to be reinforced? What has been rewarded? And that gives you the idea of the culture of a group. Now, on our first movie we're going to watch, when we show it, I have to turn off my mic. And after we turn it off, you'll get to see the movie. So we start the movie just for a second here. We pause it, and then we explain to you what we're about to see. What we're about to see is called Guarding Tess, T-E-S-S. It is a movie about 2 very strong cats. So if you chose footage from this, and this is more than 3 minutes, so I'm not going to model well your limitation of 3 minutes, you can look at 1 person, you can look at 2 people, or you can look at 3 people, group dynamics, or the system. And in this case, we're going to explain to you some of the system that we have that you'll be seeing on the screen. Tess is a former First Lady, a term for the President of the United States' wife. Of course, I'm just very anxious to have our First Lady President and see what they're going to call the husband. The scene is that she has been captured and they are trying to figure out where she is. They have discovered that she has been put underground in a farmhouse, and the FBI is involved in terms of trying to rescue her. There's several people that we're going to be looking at, and we're going to show you the scene, then we'll back it up and show it to you again and explain what is going on. So here's the first scene.
Look how deep this is. They weren't going to dig this woman up. Keep her alive for a day or 2 in case you had to have her. Just cut the ventilation. Walk. Who the hell are you back in?
We want to do the digging. She's our responsibility.
You guys are upset. Wait outside. Let people who know how to do this do it. Okay, all right, dig. Guys, come on.
Now we're going to go back and look at who's involved here. The person that you see here the arrow only works if it's plain, not if it's still.
I saw one a second ago right there. Just moved it.
So this person here is the original FBI agent that was in charge of guarding the former First Lady in her retirement. And his boss is this person here. And he is playing the role of being a foolish man. His superior is right here. So you end up having your choice if you brought this kind of footage. Do you want to look at the individual here? What is his values? What likely motivates him? Do you want to look at this person here? Do you want to look at the interaction between these two people? Or do you want to go to a system level? And here's the fella from the central office in Washington, D.C. The interaction that we're going to see is that we're going to have the fella that was in charge of guarding her, Tess, and failed because she was kidnapped, come in and ask his boss if they can do the digging. The boss says no, but you'll notice that his boss, in other words the system, is going to non-verbally indicate, no, you really should let him. So let's run the scene again and watch what happens between these.
Look how deep this is. They weren't going to dig this woman up. Keep her alive for a day or two in case you had to have her. Just cut the ventilation, walk. Who the hell let you back in?
We want to do the digging. She's our responsibility.
You guys are upset. Wait outside. Let people who know how to do this do it. Okay, all right, dig. Guys, come on, get out of there. Give these men the shovels. Come on!
Oh, yours. Thank you.
So what you just saw was the person who is the system or the national person never said anything to his subordinate, but his look, his nonverbal, indicated, no, you're foolish not to let these people do it. Why? Because their motivation is the highest of any FBI agent that is there, because they feel responsible for what happened. So they will tend to dig faster than anyone else. The other thing you saw was, you may call it perfunctory or hierarchical, but they are trying to dig out Tess, who's been put underground in a cave, in a tomb that has some limited ventilation. So they're trying to find her body and hope that she's alive. You'll notice that the fella here says thank you to his superior. That is something that you would do because of the hierarchical relationship, not because he in any way respects this person here. Going to see a little bit more of the movie at this time.
Give me the shovel.
I found something!
Hold the pipe, saving Jimmy.
Got it?
Scarlo?
Miss Carlisle?
Yep.
Ma'am?
Somebody got power saw!
Somebody got power saw! Got it! Come on, move!
What soap?
I want soap,
The
water,
blankets, nobody sees
a
it.
blanket. Nobody sees me like this.
So in this scene, we now find her underground. We're hoping that she's still alive. The person who has the lowest position of the three previous FBI agents is now giving the orders because it's his team that he is giving the orders to. What he's done is he has been mindful of that the former First Lady is going to be in probably bad condition, and he has requested that they get some materials to just clean her up and make her look good, because it's going to be a PR, public relations mess if not. So we're now going to join them again, and what's going to happen is they're now going to load her onto a helicopter with all the dignitaries, all the bigwigs from the state and federal, and they want to fly with her to the hospital. And we'll see what happens in this next scene. Again, if you are interested in scenes from a movie and you'd like to understand them better, or taking people off of YouTube, feel free to bring them. And remember, you get to choose, do I want to look at one individual, two people interacting, group dynamics, or in this case, you can look at the system also. Rejoining the movie now, as they now start boarding her on a helicopter.
Break the hole! Break the hole! Coming through! Get back! All right, right now. Outside! Let's go! Hurry! Keep those people back! Hey, come on! All right! Bring her up slowly! That's it! Now bring her towards the back of the copter! Watch your head! Come on, fellas! All right, gentlemen, watch your step! Step lively now. Watch your head. Watch your feet. The bottom of the copter is slick. Careful. Watch your head. Sorry, sir. That's too many.
That's bullshit. We're getting on.
No can do, pal. All right. We'll meet him at the hospital. Come on.
So sorry, it's an evening scene. It's not the easiest to view. They've now loaded her on an airplane. The person who is in charge of taking care of her has tried to board with his team, and the military who is flying the aircraft is saying that it's crowded and they can't let her aboard. So let's watch what happens when her name is Miss Carlisle awakens in terms of her reaction to who should be at her side.
Doc? She's alive, Joe. That's all I know. Come on, guys. Snap it up. Hey! Anybody out here named Douglas Chesney? Doug Chesney! Doug Chesney! Doug Chesney! Doug Chesney! Doug Chesney! Doug Chesney? What is it? Lady's awake, sir! Says she's not going anywhere without her Secret Service detail! Is that you guys? Yeah, that's us! Can you come aboard, sir? Yeah, we could do that! Wait 1 second, sir! I'm sorry,
So what we have is a situation where the helicopter took off. Those that were most possessive of wanting to save her detail that had guarded her for some time were not allowed on the helicopter. The helicopter takes off and then it lands again because she refuses to go anywhere unless she has her detail. Watch the dignitaries in terms of their nonverbal reaction when they have to leave the aircraft.
to throw some of you off!
So when I'm talking, I'm pausing the video so that you're not hearing anything from the video. So it should be either my voice or the sound from the film. If you are able to hear the sound from the film when it is playing, would you just write in, just do a quick chat and say, yes, can hear? Sounds good, sounds good. You can stop typing. Thank you so very much. Now, the scene that we just saw was one in which the dignitaries on board had to figure out from a hierarchical perspective who should get off first and who should get off second. So that's the nonverbals that were going on. In my opinion, movies take real life scenes and it crunches them together so that it's rather precise in terms of what you're viewing. So by viewing movies, it allows you to get very, very good at watching real-time interaction. The strong suggestion is when you do want to study reality, do it by studying movies. But you've got to take a scene and you have to study it over and over. The suggestion is 5 minutes is almost the maximum you want to look at a given moment. And then watch that 5 minutes at least 5 times. And then you'll get very, very good at watching the nonverbals. If you have a sheet that has a list of all the nonverbals we have, then what it does is it allows you to know what to watch for. And many of you have a bookmark called the Pentamentos. And the Pentamentos would just give you a way of looking at how do I look at the visuals, the auditory, the kinesthetic, the breathing, and it just gets you very precise in terms of reality. So now we're going to pick up the movie again. Their dignitaries are going to leave, and Doug Chesnick is going to be boarding, and you'll get to see an interaction between 2 cats. Tess, Mrs. Carlisle, who has been rescued, instead of thanking him, is going to go cat and going to make fun of him all the way. And of course, Chesnick couldn't stand the fact that he was given a detail of watching an old lady, the former First Lady, where he wanted action. And so they resented each other, and this is the conclusion of the movie where they get together and they have respect for each other. Remember, when you interact with a cat, you do not have to like each other at all. You just have to understand what value the other person holds for you. Picking up the movie again.
Gonna be all right? Looks like it.
Now again, watch the interaction between 2 cats. They don't thank each other, they make fun of each other. If you're going to do well with a cat, you have to almost let your cat out in order to have respect from the other person.
Where have you been?
Looking for you.
How long did it take you to figure out the cigarette lighter burns?
About 22 hours.
Oh, Douglas, it was so obvious.
No, it wasn't. Actually, I was the only one who got it.
Oh, I can hardly believe that.
It's true.
Howard Schaefer, Mrs. Carlisle, FBI. If I may say, ma'am, Agent Chesnick is the reason we found you. If he hadn't shot a man in the hospital today.
Shot a man?
Yes, ma'am.
You finally got to shoot somebody, huh, Douglas?
Well...
Oh, did you kill him?
Shot him in the toe.
Oh, after all that practice.
Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am, if I could set the record straight.
Excuse me, I'd just like to talk to this gentleman, if you don't mind.
We're going to replace part of that scene again. The big cat is the woman who has no current status other than having been formerly the president's wife. They're holding hands as they start talking, and then she makes fun of him the whole time. When the superior person here tries to indicate credit towards this person, the woman could care less what a high-ranking officer believes. A cat determines their own reality. And so she says, "Excuse me, I'd like to talk to this person alone." Let's watch the scene one more time so you can see the nuances non-verbally.
She gonna be all right?
Looks like it.
Where have you been?
Looking for you.
How long did it take you to figure out the cigarette lighter burns?
About 22 hours.
Oh, Douglas, it was so obvious.
No, it wasn't. Actually, I was the only one who got it.
Oh, I can hardly believe that.
It's true.
Howard Schaefer, Mrs. Carlisle, FBI. If I may say, ma'am, Agent Chesnick is the reason we found you. If he hadn't shot a man in the hospital today.
Shot a man?
Yes, ma'am.
You finally got to shoot somebody, huh, Douglas?
Well...
Oh, did you kill him?
Shot him in the toe.
Oh, after all that practice.
Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am, if I could set the record straight.
Excuse me, I'd just like to talk to this gentleman, if you don't mind.
The privacy that human beings want, especially when it's affectionate, is something that is being displayed in this next scene. The whole team is given credit for what they've done, but it is symbolized in terms of the leader, which is Doug Chesnick. So watch as she whispers, then watch all the team realize that it's a very intimate moment between two cats that respect each other, and therefore they take their gaze and they break contact looking at the two so that they can have privacy. Watch it again. We now jump ahead to the very last scene, and she's in a hospital, and she has recovered, and she's about to leave. And again, this last snippet could be, in and of itself, the 3 minutes that you might want to bring and just study and figure out how much can you see and how much can other people see. Here we go, the hospital scene when she's about to be released.
Oh, I'll get it, dear. Tell the others I'll be out in a minute.
Yes, ma'am.
Hello?
Mrs. Carlisle, the president's returning your call.
Oh, yes, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Tess, are they treating you all right in that hospital? Because if they're not...
Harold, I want this Secret Service agent of mine taken care of.
Yes, the man discharged a firearm in a public place.
I don't care about any of that. This young man saved my life. He's like a son to me, Harold. I want him taken care of, you understand?
Well, sure, Tess. I'm sure we...
Oh, and if anything should ever happen to me, I want your personal word that you will look after him.
Well, sure, Tess. You know,
Good. Thanks, Harold. That's all I wanted to know. You have yourself a nice day.
Yes, ma'am.
Again, what we just saw is a cat could care less about hierarchical. They absolutely could, they ignore position, they ignore rank and file. So she just hung up on the President of the United States. She got what she wanted. That's all he's valuable for at that time for her. Now we're going to see an interaction. And we're going to have three people. We're going to have Doug, of course, who is like a son to Mrs. Carlisle. We're going to have a person who's a hospital staff. And then we're going to have, of course, Miss Carlisle, who's supposed to be seated in a wheelchair, a regulation in order to leave a hospital. We'll watch the interaction and then we'll come back and look at it a second time.
Four West Nurses Station. Dr. Willis to Four West Nurses Station.
What is this?
It's your wheelchair, ma'am.
Well, I can see it's a wheelchair, but I won't be needing it. Thank you very much.
Well, it's hospital policy that you leave by wheelchair.
No, but I would really prefer not to sit in the wheelchair. I would much rather walk on my own 2 feet with my own steam out of the hospital.
I understand, but the rules and regulations state that each patient must leave in a wheelchair.
Rules and regulations, young man, are not something I'm terribly fond of. So if you would just allow me to go out on my own...
Mrs. Carlisle, I'm just trying to do my job.
I would like very much...
Please, I'm only trying to do my... Just let me do my...
So you had a fight between someone in Tess's mind who should be doing whatever she wants, and in his mind, he's part of the system. He's just trying to follow the orders, and she could care less. So let's watch again as both this person here, who's part of the system, and Tess reveal their values. So you could have chosen just one of these people, and that would be perfectly okay. Or you could choose the interaction between 2 out of the 3, or you could choose all 3 in terms of group dynamics. Watching one more time.
It's your wheelchair, ma'am.
Well, I can see it's a wheelchair, but I won't be needing it. Thank you very much.
Well, it's hospital policy that you leave by wheelchair.
No, but I would really prefer not to sit in the wheelchair. I would much rather walk on my own 2 feet with my own steam out of the hospital.
I understand, but the rules and regulations state that each patient must leave in a wheelchair.
Rules and regulations, young man, are not something I'm terribly fond of. So if you would just allow me to go out on my own...
Mrs. Carlisle, I'm just trying to do my job.
I would like very much...
Please, I'm only trying to do my... Just let me do my...
One of the things that you can do as you study movies is to see if you can guess what the next scene might be. There is a variety of ways of the film industry has utilized that. Several years at the Cannes Festival in Europe, they literally will have a scene like this that comes to a climax, and everyone has on their arms of their theater chairs the option of pressing a button and voting for, does he intervene, does he stay silent, do they get along, is there a fight? And literally they have 4 separate endings, and whichever the vote is, that's whichever of those options receive the most votes, that's the actual ending that they show. It really allows you to build your own adventure, and at the same time it intrigues the bejeebers out of the moviegoers in terms of when that film is actually released, which of the 4 possible endings are they going to use as a commercial adventure. Let's listen into what Doug does
If I may interrupt, the regulations aren't really that sacred, are they? And Tess, get in the goddamn chair.
There's several things that are going on here. One of them, if we can hopefully go back to when he whistles, his whistle is one of the pendamentos. It's called the above. Then he pauses, and if you notice, he whispers. Most people, when they take over a scene, they will go loud and stay loud. That is never as effective as the above, pause, and whisper. So his whistle is the above. He does a pause. He then turns to the person who has the lowest status, talks to the person, and you'll notice that the servant will break, again, eye contact and look down, which is a sign of submission. Then he looks over at Tess. And one of the things that we know about when you're dealing with a cat, if you can get your pupils high in your eye socket, and you do that by bringing your chin down, it is more effective with the cat. But he's very whispering as he does it, and he uses a curse word. She does her reaction, and she has to ruminate, how does she want to handle this? But because he saved her life, because she owes an affection towards him, she's going to say yes. So watch the scene again.
That each patient must leave in a wheelchair.
Rules and regulations, young man, are not something I'm terribly fond of. So if you would just allow me to go out on my own...
Mrs. Carlisle, I'm just trying to do my job.
I would like very much...
Please, I'm only trying to do my... Just let me do my...
If I may interrupt, the regulations aren't really that sacred, are they? And Tess, get in the goddamn chair.
When you think you understand everything that happened, go back and study it again. See how many little things you can pick up. So let's go back and notice some refinements. The refinement you're about to see is you will see that Doug is going to have a smile on his face. So his intervention is not out of anger, it's out of being effective. Thank you. The other thing that you're going to see is he will reach over and touch the subordinate. Touch, when it's used effectively, is extremely effective. Watching the scene again.
Me to go out
I'm
on
just trying to do my job.
Just let me do my...
If I may interrupt, the regulations aren't really that sacred, are they? And Tess, get in the goddamn chair.
So we again see that the person who is a cat, who's not gotten along with her at all, now finally can get along with her because she doesn't get underneath his skin. He's smiling again. He's learned to be effective with a cat. My goodness, something that we would all love to be able to do better at. Watch her reaction as they are about to leave the hospital. And this is just so clever in terms of how they portrayed a cat with a cat. Everything is subtle. It's not open. It's not emotional. Certainly not the American over the top in this scene.
Very good, Douglas. You're going to be all right. Very good.
Step back. Step back. Watch out behind you.
Plan to stay in summer.
One more time, we're looking at the last of the scene, and you'll notice the amount of time it takes to really study something is absolutely much more than the number of minutes that you're watching. The total number of minutes we've watched so far has been 8 minutes, but look at the length of time that it's taken us to actually understand what we're actually watching. So you'll notice that there's an affection between her and him as they touch, and she pats him and indicates that he's going to be okay. He has finally won her approval. But the last scene is him not next to her. He goes back to his position of being a guardian. And so knowing when to let out your person and when to let out your position is still one of the key things that I recommend that all of us strive for. Last scene, seen for the last time.
Very good, Douglas. You're going to be all right. Very good.
Step back. Step back. Watch out behind you.
Plan to stay in summer.
So again, you have the option of bringing footage from movies, from your own, you being filmed. Amazing what you can learn. What we highly recommend is, while you will do all the preparation you can, especially in terms of getting a hold of the manual ahead of time, downloading it off the internet on our website, when you study something, you're going to find it's an amazing opportunity to learn, but you still have to focus. Do you want to look at one person? Do you want to look at two people interacting, or do you want to look at group dynamics? I would not recommend that you look at system. System is much, much harder to understand what's going on. The last thing I would caution you on is try to bring something, whether it be an iPad or something else, that after the first night, especially those of us that are staying in the area, you may want to gather around, and instead of showing some of the film that you brought, you may want to film yourself with 2 or 3 of the other participants. Give yourself a task and then film each other, or film the 3 of you or the 4 of you interacting. Bring that footage in, study whether it be an individual, 2 people, or the whole group. And then you start getting feedback on yourself. It's very important, if you can be ambitious enough, to walk away from the week knowing as much about yourself as you do about how to understand other people. At this time, if you have any questions, feel free to type them in. While you're doing that, we're going to go to another scene. This is a scene that is straight group dynamics. We don't have Rudy doing. So if there's no questions coming in, we're going to go to our next video footage. This is 1 minute and 41 seconds long, just so that you know, it's not really the length of time, it's how critical the scene is in terms of what you're watching. This movie is called Rudy, R-U-D-Y. It's about a American sport called football, as they call it here in the States. And it's a famous university called Notre Dame. There was a very short, undersized high school football player that wanted to go to Notre Dame, and he wanted to play for the university. No one in his little hometown believed that he would be good enough to ever play. So the coach in his first year at the university made him a deal. And they said, listen, you are part of the practice squad. You'll never be a first team player. You will never probably ever get in the game. But I promise you, as your coach, if you for 4 years really help our practice squad, the last game of the last season, just before you graduate, I will make sure that you get put into the game. Everything is fine. He goes home every year, summertime, and he tells his family, "Hey, I'm gonna play my senior year." And everyone kind of goes, "Yeah," but they don't believe him because he's small. He's very petite, like I am. What happens is, just as he gets to his senior year in college, they end up having a new football coach. And the new football coach, his name is Dan Devine. So Dan Devine is the new football coach, and he doesn't know about this former promise to this wimpy guy called Rudy. But all the football players do know. So this is a very clever scene in which the team is going to protest against the head coach. Now, when you protest against a head coach, there's a rule of thumb in terms of politics that says, never wound the king. Never just wound the king. You either have to kill the king or you have to have a complete revolution. And of course, you can see that in the world today. It's really dangerous to just injure a king and not kill the king. So if we're going to do a revolution and the players want Rudy to play, you need to start off with your biggest assets, your biggest stars, indicating that they want Rudy to play. They're going to use a sporting term called suiting up. Suiting up means I'm going to give my jersey up so that Rudy can play in my jersey. This is the first person to come through. We'll look at the scene and then we'll replay it with some study in terms of the nonverbals involved. Here we go.
Yeah.
Oh, hi, Roland. Come in.
I want Rudy to dress in my place, Coach. He deserves it.
Don't be ridiculous. Georgia Tech is one of the top offensive teams in the country. You're an All-American and our captain. Act like it.
I believe I am.
So let's look at the scene again. Again, the whole scene is only 1 minute and 41 seconds. We're going to go back to the person knocking on the door. You could choose that you want to just understand the person knocking on the door. You could choose, and that would be one person. Or you could choose you want to understand the coach, or that would be a second one person. You could look at the interaction between the star football player and the coach, or you could do a group dynamics in terms of everyone else that's going to come through the door. Watch again, and if you this time, if you would please, watch the effective use of the pause, which is the #1 pentamento that we recommend that we all practice. Not talking is your single most powerful nonverbal communication you can have. The second thing, and it's a very sophisticated one, is please notice how he does not blink. The coach is a cat. The captain is a cat. much like guarding Tess. Watch how the two cats act with each other, making sure that you stay silent when you're interacting with a superior is always effective.
Yeah.
Oh, hi, Roland. Come in.
I want Rudy to dress in my place, Coach. He deserves it.
Don't be ridiculous. Georgia Tech is one of the top offensive teams in the country.
When he said, I want Rudy to dress in my place, his head was not nodding very much. Keep the head on top of the shoulders. Do not bob, do not weave. You will impress other people much more. Stay silent. Indicate that you are congruent, that they have to now deal with you. They cannot escape what you have as your message. Watch the coach now go to his second level in terms of going angry. He will, of course, shift his nonverbals by taking off his glasses.
You're an All-American and our captain. Act like it.
I believe I am.
Me too, Coach. I want Rudy to dress in my place.
Coach, this is for Rudy.
Now, if you chose that you wanted to look at the coach, anyone who's a really good skipper of a team, your goal is to make sure that the team is more important than you or any individual. Watch the shift in the coach's face as he realizes that this is a complete team that he has developed and that they are going to operate as a team in his face. And now he has to accept this is the fruits of what he has developed.
Coach.
So we see a shift in his face. Watch the corner of his mouth. He's going to start to do a slight smile. And that's when you realize, my goodness, there's no way I have enough power because I've empowered these people, and therefore I have to listen to what I've created. So tonight we've shared two movies with you. One is called Guarding Tess, and the other one is called Rudy, R-U-D-Y. And we've analyzed a very long section of 8 minutes, and then we analyzed a very short section. Now again, just to go back over one more time, watch the ability of the first person who enters the room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a couple things that he does that would be very helpful. And when we say on a sophisticated level, in terms of our nonverbals, the most sophisticated nonverbal we have is the breathing. Not eye contact, which in this case is not blinking. Not the ability to pause, in this case, which is body still and no conversation. It is the ability to watch the breathing and the comfort that someone has. So we're going to show you a scene. In just a second, he's going to come in. He's going to have the coach look up at him and then look at his breathing, and you see his shoulders rise. So watch the shoulders of the player that just walked in the door. He will take a breath before he starts.
Hi, Roland, come in.
I want Rudy to dress in my place, Coach.
It goes quick. Watch the shoulder raise.
I want Rudy to dress in my place, Coach. He deserves it.
One of the most powerful things you have when you're interacting with a cat is stay calm. You can do the above, pause, but make sure you stay calm. The last thing we want you to look at as we get ready to sign off for our last and final webinar is please watch as he's about to leave, his ability to turn his head and not blink and leave the room. I would challenge you to see if you can do that with someone else. See if you can keep your eyes on someone, move your body, and still keep eye contact without blinking. Last scene for tonight.
You're an All-American and our captain. Act like it.
I believe I am.
Here's the scene. Get ready.
Me too, Coach.
So that ends our fourth and final webinar. I thank Amy for helping us with the technology here and making sure that we had 2 films to show you. Please make sure you have the option of bringing footage. Make sure you bring something that you can film while you were there. Strong suggestion, just a suggestion. Pull out off of the MGA website your manual that you're going to receive in person. So you can just study. What do we mean by axioms? What do we mean by how do you figure out the values of an individual? What are the criteria we use in terms of who's likely to dominate? What are the standards questions that we ask ourselves when we're watching group dynamics? Margot wasn't able to be with us tonight. I thank her for doing the impetus to get this underway. And Natasha in the Positive Persuasion office has done a marvelous, marvelous job in terms of coordinating everything we had to do. If you would, it'd be nice between now and when we start in October to thank the Positive Persuasion people, their office, in terms of what they've done. Michael Grinder here, and I am so looking forward to seeing you when we get together in October. Take care.